complete list of vampire movies. If you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, I did run this as a stream just a couple of days ago, so you can go and kind of take a spin at this list of all the vampire movies, and I mean all the vampire movies. Right? This stream is like, man, it's like an hour. I don't know. I think I run it for like 2 hours. But the initial read through, man, it's gonna take you, it's gonna take you 40 minutes, right, to get through this vampire movie, right? So hey, I'm just gonna check my sound real quick on my monitor. It's gonna take you 40 minutes, right, to get through this vampire movie, right? Okay. All right. So I'm good, and I'm just testing this format out. But man, I really want to personally understand more about vampires. Like basically, what I do is study all kinds of myth and lore, and we talk about vampires a lot. And like vampires are high up on the list as far as like our favorite genres of movies. And I'm saying this because we make so many damn vampire movies. We don't play around with vampire movies. We've been making vampire movies for like, man, I don't even know how many years, homie. Like we really, really be into making vampire movies. And it's because we dig them so much. Like we love vampire movies so much that we don't stop making vampire movies. Ever. Right? It's like back to the 20s. And every decade, man, we're going to get a different type of vampire. So I'm going to dig into this just to kind of like start to understand like what's really going on with us and our obsession with vampires. Because it's changed over time a lot. Our whole rep on vampires isn't even consistent, man. Sometimes we're afraid of vampires. Sometimes we're trying to date vampires. Like some of us, like, man, we passed up a lot, man. He passed up a lot, man. He passed up a lot, right? Like there's a lot in vampire mythology that we don't talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. Again, I'm working with a new setup. So let's hope I can execute this right, because this should be fun. This is a nice list to go through. We can have some fun doing this together, okay?
The complete list of vampire movies. 1920s. 1921, Dracula's Death is released in Hungarian theaters.
1921. Vampire movies are already making the rounds.
The film is one of the earliest known vampire-themed feature productions. 1922, Nosferatu is released in German theaters.
Jesus Christ, Nosferatu is back in 1922. I mean, this is literally one of the OGs of vampire movies. And Nosferatu set a lot of tones. And like I know that name Nosferatu is going to come up as we go through this list, because there's so many movies that are based off of what they initially did here.
The film is an unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. 1927, London After Midnight is released in US theaters. The film stars Lon Chaney and is considered lost.
I mean, Lon Chaney, man, this is like an OG in, horror movies, period, across multiple decades. We're already hearing Lon Chaney, because I think he would do a werewolf movie as well, but I'll confirm that. But this guy is really, if you're into like the horror mythology, Lon Chaney is a dude you definitely need to be up on. So this is early, and we see some heavyweights from vampire movies already coming out, right? We're already hearing Bram Stoker. We're already hearing Nosferatu. Names that you're going to be very common, if you're watching vampire movies now. Like, these names.
1930s. 1931, Dracula is released in US theaters. The film stars Bela Lugosi and establishes the aristocratic vampire archetype.
Yeah, this is real talk right here. Like, Bela Lugosi is also, like, top tier overall when we talk about like horror depictions. A well-documented career. Like Bela Lugosi, really, this guy is no joke, right? Like Bela Lugosi, let me see if I can find some other info on Bela Lugosi while we got it up. But this guy, Bela Lugosi vampire. As soon as I typed in Bela, right, Bela Lugosi vampire, it instantly comes up. And that's it, man. Like, and you've seen this before, right? You've 100%. This is probably one of the most famous vampires of all time, the Bela Lugosi vampires, because this is really like an OG in terms of just like the look, the style, the flow. He was the first one with the cape, and I bet more people were out rolling with the cape vampire with the fangs than everybody else. So this is really, really like at the heart of vampire mythology right there, especially in the movie lore.
1931, Dracula is released in Mexican and US theaters. The film is a Spanish-language version produced simultaneously with Dracula. 1932, Vampire is released in German and French theaters. The film is loosely based on stories by Sheridan Le Fanu. 1933, The Vampire Bat is released in US theaters. The film blends mystery elements with early vampire imagery. 1935, Condemned to Live is released in US theaters. The film features a scientist afflicted with a vampiric condition. 1935.
Wow, that's crazy because that makes me think of like Morbius, right? The Marvel flick, where he wasn't really a vampire, right? He was just like manifesting symptoms of vampire, right? So, man, that's kind of an older storyline than what I thought. Man, come on, I'm trying to bring my phone up to watch me, but man, why are you tripping here? Okay, so let's continue on to the list.
Of the Vampire is released in US theaters. The film stars Bela Lugosi in a dual role connected to vampire folklore.
Yeah, again with Bela
1936, Lugosi, Dracula's Daughter is released in US theaters.
Yeah.
The film serves as a direct sequel to Dracula.
Yeah, I mean, like the Dracula lore, by this time, you can see this is early in the game. This is 1936, and we're already so saturated with Dracula that we've had to move on to like Dracula's kids. That's where we have to go with it, right? Because we're getting so much Dracula.
1940s. 1943, Son of Dracula is released in US theaters. The film places vampire mythology in a contemporary American setting. 1943, The Return of the Vampire is released in UK and US theaters. The film reintroduces the vampire as a wartime threat. 1944, House of Frankenstein is released in US theaters. The film crosses vampire characters with other universal monsters.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy thing, man, that we've always like linked, like somehow Dracula and Frankenstein got crossed up. Like they exist together for some reason, and I'm not sure why. Like, I want to take a sec and just kind of like, man, I want to take a look at this, man. I seriously want to take a look at this because this is one of the first mentions of vampires and like a Frankenstein monster being linked together. Are vampires and Frankenstein, how are they linked in mythology, or does this only come about because of movie making? I'm asking ChatGTP just for reference on this one. I believe it's just going to be movie making mythology and not anything else. It's going to take a second here, but this is like, they aren't linked in mythology. They're just associated. Okay. Yeah, it's different mythologies, definitely different bloodlines, right? Slavic. Vampires are from Eastern European, Baltic, and Slavic. And Frankenstein creatures are, this is Mary Shelley. So I think like she was French. Like, right, I think like the early vampire, the early Frankenstein monster was in France. Even like the new one that they just did, I think he's also in France. So that's something that's equal. The link happens, it's saying here in 1816, right? Was Mary Shelley, these guys writes The Vampire and the first Aristotic vampire blueprint. So they were kind of born under the same nexus, like Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, John Polidori. They were all kind of conceiving in this same kind of nexus together. So they're linked by the creators of the separate mythologies. Yeah, I think that's gonna have to be how it really played out here. But that's an interesting thing that we got vampires and Frankenstein, that they've been rocking together since 1816, right? That's a long history of two creatures that, have the same relationship. Like, Dracula's always trying to come up on the Frankenstein monster, right? He's always like, just muscle for him. And Frankenstein is always like, I'm not having it, right? I mean, that's consistently what we see.
1945, Dead Men Walk is released in US theaters. The film features twin brothers linked by vampirism. 1945, House of Dracula is released in US theaters. The film continues Universal's shared monster universe. 1945, The Vampire's Ghost is released in US theaters.
The Vampire's
The
Ghost.
film incorporates Caribbean folklore into vampire mythology.
Okay, that's the first time I've heard anything about Caribbeans in this mention of vampire title. But this is pretty far back. We're still in 1945 when we're starting to hear the Caribbean associated with vampirism. Obviously, we've had it. Its association to Europe. It's strong in Europe. We can see like, yeah, the UK's put out a lot of good vampire movies. Obviously, you know, Germany was down with vampire movies, and the US. Now we're seeing the Caribbeans being drawn into it as well.
1946, Devil Bat's Daughter is released in US theaters. The film functions as a loose sequel to The Devil Bat. 1948, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is released in US theaters.
Right, that's crazy again. Like both these creatures who come from this horrific mythologies are now linked in comedy. And Abbott and Costello, man, that's got to be a crazy film. I want to see if I can find some images on this, man. Abbott. Costello, Meet Frankenstein. It's right there. It's right there. Yeah, this is old school, man. This is an old school flick. You know, I kind of think I might have seen this. Like, I'm pretty sure as a child that this was on the school in the pre-cable days. So don't judge me by that. We didn't have a lot to watch back in this time period, right? But I'm sure in the pre-cable days, this was on TV enough, and I'm sure I watched it as a kid. I mean, Abbott and Costello was a thing that was happening at that time. So we just have to, you know, we have to really just bear it what it was. But this is where a lot of Frankenstein like myth was already starting to really sync up. So it's been a little while. So, you know, this is 1948. The first mention we heard was like 1918 or 1819. So a pretty deep history between vampires and Frankensteins going back. Like these dudes go back in the day. That could be my day one, right? That's what you
The
could call
film
that guy.
presents vampires within a horror comedy framework. 1950s. 1952, Mother Riley Meets the Vampire is released in UK theatres. The film combines vampire themes with British comedy. 1953, Dracula in Istanbul is released in Turkish theatres.
Wow.
The
wait a
film
minute,
adapts
wait.
Dracula into a Turkish cultural.
Wow. Now that is crazy. I had not heard by the 60s. Now we got vampires in Turkey. Like they're in Turkish culture as well. That's an insane read for me right there. Like to see, you know, the vampires have kind of bridged that gap as well, and now include Turkish culture in their stomping grounds. They're spreading everyone, right? They're spreading everywhere.
Context. 1953, El Vampiro Negro is released in Argentine theatres.
Wait a minute. What?
The film reimagines the vampire story as a crime drama.
Wait. El Vampiro Negro. What in the Blue Blazes is El Vampiro Negro, right? I'm not even going to ask Argentina. I'm not even going to ask. I'm going to assume that I know everything about what this vampire story was all about. So again, though, a new country stepping up in its representation of this long lineage of vampire movies worldwide, right? This is really getting into it. Now Argentina's in on the remix.
1956, Vampire Moth is released in Japanese theatres. The film blends vampire imagery with Japanese horror.
Wow, I mean, like, I'm stunned by this, right? I'm kind of stunned. I kind of had always assumed that vampire stories were really a Western phenomenon. I mean, I know the history of it coming from Eastern Europe, right? So I assumed it was always in Eastern Europe. I assumed that as well. I knew it was kind of, you know, the Brits, they do a lot of, like, pretty deep. The Brits are kind of deep on horror stuff too. Like, they go deep on vampires, they go deep on werewolves. So they're deep into horror culture anyway. But, you know, like Turkey, Japan, you know, we know they have strong cultures. So I'm just kind of surprised that this got in. And that'll be interesting. I definitely love to talk more about the Turkish effect. Like, how did the Turkish side of it? You know, in fact, I'm going to take some notes on that, man. I'm just giving myself some notes. And look here, ChatGTP. Like, just take a note. I'm going to have to get into the vampire stories in Turkey, right? So how did that come about? and what's the history of it. This is for a comeback on this. So I'm going to go back to this list, and I'm going to pick out some points I really want to touch on. And this getting into Turkey, man, this is a whole new thing for me, at least, in my understanding of vampires. So let's keep it rolling with the list.
Traditions. 1957, Blood of Dracula is released in US theaters.
Yep.
The film presents a female vampire protagonist. 1957, El Vampiro is released in Mexican theaters. The film becomes one of Mexico's most influential vampire productions.
Wow, El Vampiro, man. Again, a film I haven't heard of. El Vampiro. Wait. I have to look over my mic to see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm digging it, man. I'm absolutely digging El Vampiro. 100%. 100%. I'm literally going to put this on list. I wonder if this is in distribution anywhere right now. I'd love to check this out, but definitely old school. It's got the look to it. But yeah, we see Mexico's contributed, pretty well, to the vampire lore that we, as it exists, globally.
1957, I Vampiri is released in Italian theaters.
Wow, Italian theaters. Italian theaters, man. This is a phenomenon. It seems like it makes sense to me that they would have that, right? Like they would have vampire flicks. This is just my first exposure. I Vampiro. Is that it? And there it is. I Vampiri. Okay, is that it? I Vampiri. 100%, man. 100%. Yeah, that's amazing. This is pretty old school. This has got a great look to it. It's kind of classic. Let me see if I can find some of the original art. This looks like that's the original. Yeah, I think this is the original Cinescope. So, man, Italy's definitely got a tradition in vampire movies. So who doesn't? Who doesn't?
The film is one of Italy's earliest horror features. 1957, The Vampire is released in US theaters. The film portrays vampirism as a medical condition. 1958, Blood of the Vampire is released in UK theaters.
UK stays
The film
strong.
emphasizes gothic laboratory horror. 1958, Horror of Dracula is released in UK theaters. The film introduces Christopher Lee as Dracula for Hammer Films.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, man. Christopher Lee, if you guys don't know, this guy is actually like, man, is he still alive? I'm not sure, man. This dude is like deep in the streets. When it came, like, man, this dude, yeah, Christopher Lee is one of the dopest actors that's existed, man. You see how far back he starts coming in as vampires, right? He would also, I believe, be in Lord of the Rings, right? He plays Sauron, right, in Lord of the Rings, and I'm pretty sure he's Count Dooku. I mean, but this is where he first really started making his films. Let's see if we got a shot of his vampire stuff, man. Let's see. Let's look at his vampire movies. Yeah, man, this dude right here, you can see that face is unmistakable. Man, just legendary at this shit, right? Legendary, man. Christopher Lee. And you can see how far back he was making his mark, man. And this dude, I mean, all the way into Star Wars, man. Like, that's how powerful this dude, as an actor, really was. And obviously how versatile, like, this dude got down. Yeah, this is absolutely a giant of the industry, man. The filmmaking, man. Because this guy was just absolutely a beast. Absolutely a beast. Like, really left his mark.
1958, The Return of Dracula is released in US theaters. The film relocates Dracula to modern America. 1959, Curse of the Undead is released in US theaters. The film blends vampire mythology with the Western genre. 1959, Uncle Was a Vampire is released in Italian theaters.
Wow, okay, Italy. Now I'm really starting to respect you, man. Uncle Was a Vampire. That's something I'm putting on the radar.
The film presents a comedic take on vampirism.
Maybe not.
1960s. Yeah. 1960, The Brides of Dracula is released in UK theaters.
Yes, love it.
The film is a Hammer Films sequel expanding the Dracula franchise.
Nice.
1960, Blood and Roses is released in French theaters. The film is inspired by Sheridan Le Fanu's novella Carmilla.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So I think this is the first French release that we've had on the list. At a period of time where vampire lore is just really exploding, so it's a great time.
1960, Black Sunday is released in Italian theaters.
Yeah, Europe's
The
holding
film is
strong, man.
directed by Mario Bava and blends gothic horror with vampirism. 1960, The Vampire and the Ballerina is released in Italian theaters.
Wow.
The film combines vampire mythology with gothic mystery elements. 1960,
I think that's an amazing blend, like gothic literature culture with vampire culture. That's kind of really giving us a lot in terms of when it's come back. Give me a sec. I just want to look up how can you give me examples of vampire movies being linked to gothic literature or culture? Man, I mean it's two like strong cultures, creatively, historically, and storytelling. Let's see, means decaying, ruined castles and monasteries, obsession with death, forbidden sexuality. This is what it's talking about with gothic, and you combine that, with Bella. Well, on screen they're saying way back, like obviously Bram Stoker is the source of vampirism. And its gothic link is to obviously the castles, the feudal power. Dracula is ancient nobility, feeding on the present. It is sexuality, hammer. So it gets into it. So this is kind of a deep combining of, like, I didn't see it that way in terms of gothic culture and also, vampiric lore, pure vampire, kind of mythology as it is.
Atom Age Vampire is released in Italian theaters. The film incorporates science fiction elements into vampire horror.
Very nice combination.
1961, Lycanthropus is released in Italian theaters. The film mixes vampiric and werewolf themes within gothic horror. 1961, The Curse of the Living Corpse is released in US theaters. The film blends murder mystery with supernatural folklore. 1962, Santo vs. the Vampire Women is released in Mexican theaters.
Wow, Mexico coming on strong, man. I like that, man. Let me see if I can find this. I just want to look at it, man. Let's see. Santos versus Vampire Women. Let's see. This is old school, though. Let's see if this is even. And there we have it, man. There we have Santos versus the Vampire Women. I hope you won, Santos. I don't know. I don't know if I'm rooting for you or if I'm rooting for... Yeah, Santos versus Las Mujeres Vampiro. Excellent, man. Excellent, man. I'm happier in life just knowing that this even exists, man. I want to thank you, Santos, and the entire crew who put this together, man. This is great imagery. I love this already, man. And here's the thing. I don't know, Santos. I don't know who I'm rooting for in this scenario, man. I don't know if I'm rooting for Santos, if I'm rooting for the Mujeres Vampiro, right? Okay. Because they were really bringing it. But yeah, maybe Santos. I don't know. But I feel like you should have given into that, man. But we'll talk about it.
The film features the wrestler Santo battling a coven of vampires. 1962, Slaughter of the Vampires is released in Italian theaters. The film presents vampirism as a medieval curse. 1962, The Horrible Drive Hitchcock is released in Italian theaters. The film is a gothic horror production associated with Italian vampire cinema. 1962, The Blood Drinkers is released in Philippine theaters. The film is a Filipino vampire production inspired by Western horror.
Wow, now that's an interesting flip into the mix now. I did not expect to see the South Pacific, I think that's where they're at, right? The South Pacific start to get into it. That's got to be an amazing myth, man. Like, just to see what their cultural take is on it. Give me a sec. I'll get myself back on cam here. Not that matters to you guys, but yeah, that's a wild one. What's it called here? The Blood Drinkers. Let me just take a look at the Blood Drinkers, guys. This will be worth it if we can find the Blood Drinkers. Is that 1964? It's 1962 by my sources. Let's see if it finds it for me. Yeah, and there we have it. There we have it. The Blood Drinkers. Yes. Like, why does everybody end up talking about vampires, man? This is what's scaring me. Because I don't know if you're watching this list. I don't know if you're pro-vampire or you're anti-vampire. But I'm Team Blade with mine. Like, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not like, oh, yeah, there's a vampire over there. Let's go kick it with him. That's not me. I'm not on none of that, man. I don't be like, oh, yeah, vampire. I'm scared of vampires. You see what's above me? I'm scared of vampires. I'm scared of that little girl.
1962, The Long Hair of Death is released in Italian theatres. The film stars Barbara Steele and incorporates vampiric themes. 1963, The Kiss of the Vampire is released in UK theatres. The film is an original Hammer Films vampire story not tied to Dracula. 1963, Castle of Blood is released in Italian theatres. The film centres on a haunted castle with vampiric elements.
I did not know Europe was so deep in there. Well, I guess I did. I just wasn't expecting, like UK I get, I wasn't expecting Italy. They've clearly been strong on the amount of vampire movies that they produced.
1963, Black Sabbath is released in Italian theatres. The anthology film includes segments associated with vampire folklore. 1963, The Whip and the Body is released in Italian theatres. The film merges gothic romance with supernatural revenge. 1963, The Crimson Cult is released in UK theatres. The film adapts elements from H.P. Lovecraft and vampire myth.
Wow, that's okay. I gotta look this one up, man. Anytime I hear Lovecraft, man, it gets to be a little bit scary. Let's look this up and see what we can find. Crimson Cult. Ah, and there we have it. Wow, what the is this? Yeah, man, you know, I was going to say, what is this? Until I thought, yeah, this is Lovecraft lore right here. This is 100% Lovecraft. So that it looks like this shouldn't even surprise me. I wonder if this is in rotation anywhere. Man, because I know for all you Lovecraft, you Cthulhu worshipers out there, this is probably right up your alley, man. And it's scary that, man, back in the day, like, Lovecraft was already having like a massive cultural influence. And we'll have to go back and talk about Lovecraft. Like, Lovecraft stuff kind of scares me a little bit. And I'm just setting aside some notes, man, to go and follow up later. Yeah, I definitely want to look up this film for later. This is Lovecraft, or the film is The Crimson Cult, which is released in UK theaters in 1962. I was told it has a lot of Lovecraft themes. And I may want to look at whether it's something I need to talk about on the channel or watch myself. So yeah, I may get into it with Lovecraft. Like that definitely sounds like that's right up my alley. Let's see what. Oh yeah, okay. This has got a little bit of info on it. Let me have it. Okay.
Yep, here's the real scoop on Couch the Crimson Cult. Actually released as Curse of the Crimson Altar in the UK in 1968, then as The Crimson Cult in the US, and how it connects to H.P. Lovecraft themes, because there are some wild misconceptions out there. What the film actually is: title, Curse of the Crimson Altar UK release, The Crimson Cult US, year, 1968 UK, 1970 US. Director Vernon Sewell, stars Christopher Lee, Boris Karloff.
Oh man, this is okay. Let me read this myself. This is gonna take too long with the chat box. Let's see. This is definitely Lovecraftian stuff. Okay, it's not officially based off of Lovecraft, but the underlying concept is loosely adapted from L.P. Lovecraft story, Dreams in the Witch House. So there's some references that are to it. Why Lovecraft gets mentioned. Lovecraft's work is famously hard to bring to screen because his horror is psychological and cosmic rather than monsters in the fogs. Film that try to cash on his vibe in the 60s and 70s often tighten the plot into investigation plus cults, emphasize dream logic and weird imagery, and swap cosmic dread for sexy cults. So this kind of sounds like Lovecraftian stuff. From what I know, man, is really insidiously scary. If you really sit back and think about it, like if you really get into Lovecraft, I'm not gonna take much time getting into Lovecraft right now. We're gonna stick to what we're on, but yeah, definitely Lovecraftian stuff is that's chilling stuff, man.
Anthology. 1964, The Last Man on Earth is released in Italian and US theaters. The film adapts Richard Matheson's novel I Am Legend. 1964, The Vampire's Night Orgy is released in Spanish theaters.
Really? Vampire's Night Orgy. I ain't even gonna look that up. I'm just gonna be really honest, right? I'm not. I don't want that in my browser history. But really? Okay, Spain.
The film portrays a remote village affected by vampirism.
Yeah, I wonder what they started
1964, The Night Walker is released in US theaters. The film blends psychological horror with supernatural suggestion. 1965, Planet of the Vampires is released in Italian theaters.
All right, I gotta look this one up, man. Okay, Planet of the Vampires, 1965. And there we have it, man. There we have it. Yeah. Planet of the Vampires. Is this the first time vampires have been in space? Is space? Let's look this up. Okay, the 1965 film Planet of the Vampires is released in Italian theaters. Is this the first vampire movie that's not on terrestrial Earth in the history of the movies that we talked about? Was there something that came before this that put vampires in space? That's an interesting thing, man. Like when vampires, like right now we're seeing like every single country really has been represented. I mean, at least, Mexico, Paris, France, the Brits, India. So you get into the Middle East. Yeah, this is the first. So per ChatGTP, this is the first intentional vampire film set off Earth, and right? Okay, I guess there's a vampire Dracula on Mars that there's no documentation of it that's out, but this looks like Planet of the Vampires, 1965. This is an important moment, man. This is an important moment for the first vampire. You're the first vampire in space. You were the first vampire in space. Directed by Mario Bava in Italy in 1965. The setting is an alien planet, and the antagonist is a disembodied spirit that possesses corpses, drains life force, and reanimates dead. They don't drink blood. Oh, man. Okay, so they don't drink blood, which to me, that's core to vampirism, man. That's absolutely core of vampirism, is you have to be drinking blood. So I don't know if I still count this as a legitimate vampire movie. I don't know, man. Right now, because it's fascinating to me. It has a religious aspect, graveyards, castles, villages. Ah, man, I'm gonna have to think about this one, man, because I was really excited to see this being the first vampire movie in space, but it's not vampires like we know them, right? So, there's no blood drinking, man. I would have accepted a vampire on Mars who drank blood, and I would say that's a vampire movie, but I don't know about this.
The film combines science fiction with vampiric possession. 1965, The Skull is released in UK theatres. The film adapts a short story by Robert Bloch with gothic elements. 1965, The She-Beast is released in UK theatres. The film includes supernatural folklore connected to vampirism. 1966, Dracula, Prince of Darkness is released in UK theatres.
Nice.
The film marks the return of Christopher Lee as Dracula.
Just prolific, dude. This guy is prolific as Dracula, man. I mean, he really made an early career out of this.
1966, The Plague of the Vampires is released in UK theatres. The film presents vampirism as a contagious condition. 1966, Billy the Kid vs. Dracula is released in US theatres. The film combines Western and vampire genres.
1965, Billy the Kid versus the Vampire. Yeah, and there it is. Billy the Kid versus Dracula. There it is. There it is. I mean, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know what I'm supposed to think about Billy the Kid versus Dracula. I really don't. I really don't know what studio exec was like, this is a good idea. Vampires versus cowboys. So, I don't know, man. It is a legit movie. It did happen. And we got to accept that as part of, vampire lore. Something crazy like that.
1967, The Fearless Vampire Killers is released in UK and US theatres. The film is a horror comedy directed by Roman Polanski.
Wow.
1967, The Blood Beast Terror is released in UK theatres. The film blends Victorian crime with supernatural horror. 1967, The Night of the Devils is released in Italian theatres. The film adapts elements from Russian vampire folklore. 1968, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave is released in UK theatres. The film continues Hammer's Dracula series. 1968, The Devil Rides Out is released in UK theatres. The film adapts a novel by Dennis Wheatley involving occult horror. 1968, The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue is released in Spanish theatres.
Wow, that is a nice title. The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue.
The film combines social commentary with undead mythology. 1969, The Oblong Box is released in UK theatres. The film blends Edgar Allan Poe themes with gothic horror. 1969, Count Dracula is released in UK and Spanish theatres. The film stars Christopher Lee in a more novel-accurate portrayal of Dracula. 1969, Blood of the Virgins is released in Argentine theatres.
Wow, Blood of the Virgins. Blood of the Virgins. I just gotta look this up, guys. Is Blood of the Virgins 1969? Is that the first vampire movie we see come from Argentina? (1969) Blood of the Vampires. 1969 Blood of the Vampires. And there it is. Oh yeah, this looks like it here. Yeah, and you can see it like man. This is like definitely blood of Dracula's castle. So the horror is just expanding. Like clearly, it's definitely a global phenomenon.
The film is a South American vampire production featuring Dracula. 1970s. 1970, Count Yorga, Vampire is released in US theatres. The film presents a modern, urban interpretation of vampirism. 1970, The Vampire Lovers is released in UK theatres. The film adapts Sheridan Le Fanu's novella Carmilla. 1970, Taste the Blood of Dracula is released in UK theatres.
Taste the
The
blood
film
of Dracula.
continues
Taste the Blood of Dracula. Wow.
Hammer Films' Dracula series. 1970, House of Dark Shadows is released in US theatres. The film is a theatrical adaptation of the Dark Shadows television series. 1970, Assignment Terror is released in Spanish theatres. The film features multiple classic monsters including Dracula. 1970, The Erotic Rites of Frankenstein is released in Italian and Spanish theatres.
Wait, what? The Erotic Rites of Frankenstein? The Erotic Rites of Frankenstein. I don't think this is it, guys. I don't think those images are it. I don't know why they're pulling them up. Yeah, that's a weird search. I wish I hadn't done it now. But I'm going to take a break right now. Obviously, this is a pretty lengthy list, and I want to go through this in some more detail. So I'm going to log off for a bit. You guys are definitely welcome to come and watch the other streams about these files are already up, so you can definitely come check them out. And I'm going to take a break, get some food, and I'll come back and continue to work on this list.